Osawatomie is the town of history and promise. And we're going to look a little bit at some history and really dive into some of the family aspects this time around. I have with me Dr. David Dugan and his son, Ben Dugan. Let's get them in. This is the first time we're going to do this with two people. I'm excited to see how this turns out. Should be good. Got your video going? Dr. Dugan, there you are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know.
I can hear you, Ben, but I can't see you, man.
I'm turning my camera on, I think.
Dr. Dugan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see. I can't see either of you now.
You can't see us?
Yep.
Oh man, that's terrible. Well, you look sharp. So you on my end, you look great and you sound great.
Okay,
that's the part I'm worried about. And if you can't see me, then you're lucky.
No, I don't see Ben. He's supposed to be on too.
Yeah, Ben's here.
I'm here.
Just messing with his video. And for somebody who works in tech, I would imagine that Ben should be able to get that sorted out, right?
That would be great.
You know what, Dr. Dugan, I appreciate you because you there's a pattern that I've noticed in my whole entire life, and I'm pretty sure you've noticed this too. Is that as a Dave, we have not run into a single bad-looking Dave yet.
No, it's true.
Yeah. We're just carrying the torch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate that about you.
Well, yeah. And I told you what the definition of David is. What it means is beloved.
Yeah.
Beloved, yeah.
Yeah. Which is my parents named me after. My dad was a pastor when I was much younger. And that's what they named me. And my middle name is Michael. And I want to say Michael has something to do with being an angel. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm a beloved angel. But my wife has way different stories. Ben, what's going on with your video, man?
Well, I had to update Zoom and on this other computer I have, and I decided I'm not going to do that. I don't have time for that. And so now I try to use the browser, and it's not quite working with the browser. So,
man,
we'll figure it out. I might have to leave and come back. I might have to update my thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, hurry back because I have questions for you, sir.
All right.
Well, so Dr. Dugan, I want to ask you some questions just about your history. So you graduated from Osawatomie, class of 1975. You were the first class. 74. Sorry. You're right. It's 1974. But you guys were the first class to be in this building all 4 years.
Right. Yeah, we were lucky. The class ahead of us had to move. They were seniors and they complained and threw a fit, and they get it, but they sucked it up, and we just kind of laughed because we're going to be the first class to go through all by ourselves. And
yeah,
but they made it, and it was fine, and they got at least the 73 class got a part of the year there in the new high school. So
and your class specifically is a very special class. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're going to dive into a little bit later, but the only people that I've met from your class through my father-in-law have played on the team. So I'm super excited to hear your perspective of that senior year. What was it like when, the team is going on and winning, they went and won the state championship, what was that like as, somebody who wasn't actually on the football team?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of us who weren't. I mean, I was not a stud. I was not an athlete. I mean, but yeah, it was exciting. There were a lot of us. Yeah, I know. I was one of the geeks. I studied a lot.
You're my kind of guy.
Yeah. But we were so proud of these guys. I mean, they were our friends, and we went to class with them, and we knew them, and they weren't stuck up. They weren't arrogant. They were just regular dudes, and they played football, and they were man, they were, tough as nails. If you want to talk about that for a minute, I did hear, listen to Ike Brady's his blog a couple nights ago, and listen to Ike, classmate, but he was right when he made a comment about people laughing. I remember when we played Paola, and I'm in the audience, the stands, in the small bleachers at Paola, and the arch rivals, and the people, the crowd, the big crowd over there on the Paola side, they just laughed at our very small group of football players. They laughed, and it wasn't long before they stopped laughing because I don't know what the score was, but Osawatomie kind of trounced them. I mean, usually Paola would come out and beat the snot out of the Trojans, and we were used to that. But this year, these guys, not just the seniors, but the juniors and the sophomores are all, they won state. Yeah, and the laughing stopped.
Yeah.
So.
And there's something about that story. It's kind of the underdog story, so to speak, but there's something about that story of let them laugh at us and we're going to show you how tough we are. But that kind of has been a trend with this town all throughout. I mean, it just seems as though people underestimated this town in ways, and then this town seems to just step up and rise to the occasion. When the railroads left in the mid 80s, I could only assume that people looked at this town and went, well, it's going to die. And it hasn't died. I mean, it's still the exact same population as it was when that happened. So it's kind of an interesting theme.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah, I'm back.
So something that you and I need to talk about here, sir.
Yeah.
The connections are incredible. So I grew up in Texas. I met my wife when I was in Dodge City Community College for a year. And when I moved to Kansas City in 2005, I had zero connections to Osawatomie. And then I went back to school when I was 27 to become a math teacher. And then I became a high school math teacher, and I got a job mid-semester. So I started in January. The only school that would take me is JC Harmon High School. I didn't have a classroom, and I end up getting shoved in the corner. It felt like my first day there. I kept telling myself, nobody puts baby in a corner. Well, they put me in a corner. Yeah. And the set of cubicle situation, it was like a frat house up there.
Yeah.
And you, sir, were a founding member of the frat house that I wanted to be a part of so bad.
I think you're an honorary member. I mean, because so how this office was set up, we had something called the man cave, and there was four guys in this one little spot, and there was one entrance to their cubicle. So like imagine there's four cubicles all facing each other basically, and there was one entrance, and there was a big like pillar in the middle, and then that man cave shared a wall with you, and you're like a giant 6 foot over 6 foot, and so you're just like hung out in your office, like looking in over at us all the time and talking to us. And so of course you're like honorary member of this man cave.
Well, I wanted to be a part of that group so bad. I even started wearing ties because you guys started Tie Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
Y'all had Tie Tuesday going on, and I was like, I want these guys to like me so bad. I like went home and I told my wife, I said, we got to find a tie. I don't think
you didn't have a tie.
I don't think so.
You were 27, didn't have a tie.
I mean, I probably may have, but I just remember coming home to my wife and saying, we got to get a tie. And so,
yeah,
I mean,
but if that tells you anything about you, you don't have a tie at age 27, if that tells you anything, it's pretty awesome.
I'm pretty, they wanted me to wear collared shirts, and so a collar with a collar on it. So polo was about as fancy as I got. So I would wear ties with a polo shirt just to try and fit in.
Really fancy.
Oh, and did that?
That's a geek shirt. Yeah.
Say that again.
It sounds like a real geek maneuver there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would probably fit in better at Berkeley than I would at MIT. I'll say that. Yeah. I'm less concerned with how I look, and I'm more concerned with the ideas that are getting shared. That's the part. So Ben, you and I worked together for 4 or 5 years, and then I I took over Grandpa's house here in Osawatomie, and I told you, I was like, hey, we moved this weekend to Osawatomie, and you, sir, looked flabbergasted at me, and you're like, my family's from Osawatomie. That was crazy. Like this, just
because I think at that point I'd never heard anyone moving to Osawatomie. I had heard people growing up there and then moving away.
Right. So you've had family here your whole life, and you were telling me one of the first stories that you told me about Osawatomie is that you and your brothers would have competitions to climb your grandma's tree.
Grandpa's tree, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
or
great.
Actually, yeah, it was so my cousin had my grandpa was I can't remember the exact story. I think it was on Brown. And then down the way within walking distance was where my cousins lived, and there was 4 siblings, and there, of course, both their parents were there, and in their yard they had this tree, and one of their school friends or whatever just brought over like a tie down, like just like one of those little rubbery and metal tie downs with hooks on the ends, and he just climbed the tree and put it up there one day, and then he's like, hey, and then he was telling my cousin's like, hey, look at this, I put this thing up there, see if you can go beat it. And so apparently there was one of the taller kids, they would be one-upping each other each time, right?
Yeah.
And so I came over one summer, and I was like, one of my hobbies was just to climb trees. I just loved doing it, and I was also really short when I was like until freshman year. I was a pretty short kid, and so I was light. And so as you climb the tree, you can get to a higher height, because you're lighter, because the branches don't need to support as much weight. So it was easy for me to just go break the record.
Yeah.
And I just and I put it up there, and they never, as far as I know, they've never beat it.
I
think it's still there on that tree.
Yeah, I want to find that tree and see if there's like a carabiner or whatever still up in the top of that.
It's got to be. Yeah, I don't know. And then the tree next to it was a pine tree.
Mm-hmm.
And they had another tie down for that one. And you know pine trees, they're sappy, and you try to climb them, your hands get ripped up. So I went and broke the record on that one too, but I came out bleeding from that.
You paid the price.
Sappy. Yeah.
Well, he was fearless. He was fearless. He didn't care. I mean, he just wanted to have a good time. And his brothers were a little more tentative. Certainly, Matthew, the oldest one, was very tentative. Sean, not so much, but Benjamin, no fear. I'm doing it. I'm in. He climbed everything. He climbed rock walls. He did it all. Yeah.
Do you think that's because he's a middle child?
I'm the youngest.
Oh, you're the youngest?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were the middle. I thought Sean was the youngest.
Oh, I think because I'm the youngest, is probably I need attention. I want attention.
Yeah,
so
that makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, because I'm the baby of my family too, and that makes a lot more sense.
Well, he could get by with more because the other two had broken most of the rules, and then Ben was like, this is Ben. He can do whatever he wants.
So Ben, when you would come up here to Osawatomie, what about Osawatomie gave it that like Sandlot Americana feeling? Was it just the family? Was it what about Osawatomie would give it that feeling?
We always came up in the summer, like school year wasn't going on, so it just kind of felt free and kind of like no school was going on. And actually, when we were we had like a curse word was school during summer. So right. my cousins made it up. So like we couldn't talk about school because it was a curse word in summer. And so we always went there, and it was always like, from driving from Wichita where I lived, it was like a 2.5 hour drive. So, you get your time to like get out of town, and you see parts of Kansas, and then you arrive, and there's just these awesome group of people that love to play video games and go outside and kick a ball around, and they had a slingshot they were hitting birds with. And so like all these different things, they would take acorns, and the typical teenage, like middle school fun. And it was just like the summer thing we did. And I think we went out there probably every summer, and we made up like all these different like inside jokes, and I remember most of them. They have these. We always wanted to stay at their house because we usually stayed at Grandpa's house, which is just up the road. And we were always like, Dad, Mom, can we stay at our cousin's house tonight? And most of the time, my parents were like, no. You have beds here. There's more beds and whatever. And we were like, eventually we broke them down, and a couple times we got to stay at their house, and we ended up, because they didn't have bed, they didn't have enough beds. We just slept on the floor with blankets and stuff.
Yeah. But that's the best part about being a kid in the summer.
I know, yeah.
Now, which cousins is it that you're talking about?
Do you want their names?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so it's the Hennesses. The Hennesses was their family name. And
Derek,
so it was
Derek Hennis?
Derek and Ryan,
Yeah.
and AJ and Rachel with the kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was
Wild.
yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so Dr. Dugan, I wanted to ask you, like, what are the family ties here? So was it your dad that moved to Osawatomie, or was your dad born and raised in Osawatomie?
All right, Dad's from Osawatomie. My mom's from Paola. So it must have been my grandfather. I never met because he died, gosh, early. And my father was, I think, in high school. Oh yeah, but I had to be with the railroad because that was the big job there in town. And so I'm sure my grandfather moved there and settled there. And Dad was an only child. And when Grandpa died, Dad would have been taken to would have gone to the Korean War, I suspect. But at the time, he was the only male survivor, if you will. So he was allowed to stay at home and stay with Grandma. And so he worked through high school and did a bunch of stuff. He was a skate boy. He worked at a butcher shop downtown.
Oh, cool.
And then he met my mother, I guess, at the roller rink sometime, because he was a skate boy and he could skate forward and backwards and do these tricks and stuff. Roller skating was big. So Mom was from Paola, and kind of a beauty queen. She was still beautiful. I wish Ben could have met her, but she died early too, and she was only like 57. And so, but they were, just a beautiful couple. And Dad was just handsome as heck, and she was just gorgeous. And and then they married in 54 and settled in Osawatomie. They're on Main Street, just this one house off the corner of 12th and Main. And then I come along a couple years later. So
that's cool. What did your dad do for work?
He worked for Missouri Pacific for like 9.5 years.
So he
said I would say on for 10 years he would have had a pension. Well, he quit after 9.5 years or something. Went to work for Bendix Corporation. Yeah, I know. We went to work at Bendix, and so we wound up moving up which is in Kansas City, Missouri. We wound up moving to Raytown because it was a long commute. We were there a few years. My sister was born. My brother was born there, and we were in Kansas City, Raytown. And then after a few years, he had it. I mean, he said, I got to go back. He wanted to go back, and so he moved us back. And when I was probably 10, and we came back to Osawatomie when I joined 5th grade. So at the West School, I think he called it the Swenson School now. Oh, by the way, one of the Swensons was a classmate of mine. Greg Swenson was another classmate too.
Oh wow!
So we knew the Swensons, and we knew Principal Swenson and Ernest Swenson, the good folks. But anyway, so yeah, that's how I got started. Kind of where we lived in the house on Brown Street, just like Benjamin said, 2 houses from the water tower.
Yeah, I think that's so neat. I think that's really neat. Because it's just, I mean, from where I'm at, I live in the shadow of that at 10th and Pacific. So it's just fascinating how a coworker buddy of mine at JC Harmon has these ties to Osawatomie and my father-in-law in this town. I think that part's absolutely fascinating.
The place where you live, Haynes Florist, I think I mowed their yard too. I mowed a bunch of yards up and down Pacific and Brown Street. I think I mowed Haynes. I mean, I believe. I mean, we made a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money.
Yeah.
$3,000, a lot of money back there for mowing a yard.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually I've been there's a lot where that Haynes flower shop is, and I have been trying to put a garden there, and about 3 inches underneath the soil is a foundation from where the old flower shop was. So in my mind, when I was like, yeah, I'll put a garden there, the very first time I put a shovel in that dirt, it hit concrete, and I went, uh-oh. No. So
Oh, no.
it's been years of fighting these giant bricks and rocks and all sorts of fun stuff that you find in glass and nails and stuff. So
Mm.
that part's been super interesting. But yeah, it's just like I love that there's just that another bit of connectivity. You and I have both mowed the same lot. I think that's funny.
So yeah.
So when you were growing up in Osawatomie, what you're okay, just before I ask this question, I want to make it very clear. You're a board certified anesthesiologist. That is not something to scoff at. There's different levels of doctors and medical doctors in my book, and board certified anesthesiologist is at the very top because in order to get your certification on the board, it takes a ton of mental effort, a ton of studying, a ton of just pure understanding and knowledge of how the body works. And I'm always really impressed when I hear board certified. I think that is absolutely impressive. So congratulations to you on that first and foremost. What is it? Who I guess what teacher or what moment when you were in school kind of set you on that path? I'm not not that like there was a moment in school you're like, I'm going to become a board certified anesthesiologist. No. But there was something in school that happened that kind of allowed you to explore the sciences. What was it in school?
Well, I think there was, and I mentioned this in our preview kind of interview, but Nina West was, I want to say, a 7th or 8th grade teacher there. She was only there a few years, but Miss West had this thing, and she was a science teacher, and so she was at the East School when we had, so it had to be at most 8th grade. But she always had this saying about keep an open mind, and I believe that's useful, and I know it's useful. I try to do that to this day, keep an open mind, and I try to instill that upon our boys to explore the world and explore things and to just seek out what interests you. But she was just always making us think about things and always trying to look at this, look at it from this angle, and what about that angle, and she was a good teacher, and so and that was one that was good, that was important to me, I think.
Yeah.
So and then I sciences, and I just just enjoyed biology, enjoyed some of the other advanced classes. So it's just kind of natural.
Yeah. That's you're fortunate. You're absolutely fortunate that you didn't like to take sciences naturally is not that's I don't want to say that's normal. That's not normal by any stretch. So you're very fortunate as far as that goes. Hey Ben,
Yes.
in what ways did your dad encourage education when you were growing up?
Let me think. In what ways did he encourage?
Yeah, did he like force you
mean,
to do homework? Did he sit you down and say from
No.
7:20 to 8:15 you're going to be doing
No.
this and doing that? Like how did
No.
he encourage?
Mother
All right,
did.
so yeah, it was mostly okay. So my dad, he works hard, like a lot and hard all the time, and so there was a lot of times when I'd be working on a homework or whatever, and he'd be at work, and it'd be in the evening or something, and it's not like he would be gone for a month at a time. It'd be a good 2 weeks. Your schedule at in Wichita where we lived was pretty hectic, I think. And there'd be nights when you'd be getting home at decent times in the night, and I'd be already asleep. So it was mom that did a lot of that pushing and drive to like get me to just do my best. I wasn't an A student. I would say a B+ student,
Yeah.
but the grading scale, hold on, the grading scale was A was 100 all the way until 92%, and then a B+ was started at 91%. So I got 91% all the time, and on the grading scale, I was getting B's, B+s instead of, so in any other place that the grading scale was the typical 100 or 10 points per letter, I was an A student. Anyway, no, I just I think part of the reason that my dad encouraged me to be educated is when I was choosing like what college path to take, not what university, but what major to get. I was looking at teaching, I was looking at history, That was kind of my passion. Ever since my junior year, I had a teacher who really inspired me to become a history teacher.
Yeah.
And so I went for that. My dad suggested was like, well, there's always medicine. There's always this science pathway. And I was like, no, 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 no. I see how hard you work. I don't have your work ethic.
Yeah.
And but I appreciate it now because I on my free time I will just go watch science YouTube videos all the time about a lot about space, a lot about scientific pieces, like a lot about quantum physics. I don't know, it just interests me, and a lot of that stuff blows me out of the water because it's above my head. But
Yeah.
it's just so interesting to me now.
Have you ever gotten
To
into
just get back in.
Veritasium? Have you ever gotten into
I
Veritasium?
love Veritasium. Yeah,
Or Veritasium.
yeah,
Yeah,
with
he's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
that guy's
great.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Derek.
Have you?
I think his name is Derek, right?
Yeah, I think maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just know him as I call it
he's a
Veritasium because, like,
Veritasium.
yeah,
Yeah,
Veritasium. Yeah, he actually. Yeah, that guy's awesome. But yeah, I appreciate that because that's what I do on my lunch breaks at school. Is I sit and I watch YouTube videos about math and science to try and get a new way of introducing a topic to my kids.
yep. I'll be
Yeah,
sending you some videos from now on
no, please
of stuff
do.
I'm watching.
Yeah, I would really, please, I encourage that. So you got out of education and you got into tech, right?
Yeah. I've part of it was because you and I did this thing at JC Harmon.
Mm-hmm.
It changed my career.
I'm
So
so sorry.
to get no, it's the greatest thing that happened to me after college. You know, like after wedding and children and stuff, it changed my career. Like so, like to give listeners an idea of what of how Dave affected my life. The principals, the admin went up to Dave at JC Harmon was like, "Hey, we have this idea, and you can step in and correct me at any point I'm wrong at." But
Right.
they had this idea of you. For some reason, they decided you having a microphone was a good idea, and
All right.
so
Well, okay. Let me interject and I'll let you keep going.
okay,
Here's what happened. Right. There was a morale issue, and I said, well, I am an overtly positive human being with like I sweat positivity, right? Like that's just what I do. It's like when so I said, let me do this. Let me do a what's called a PD or professional development. So it's take 1 hour and you get the whole school staff to sit in a room and they force them to do it, right? And so I said, well, for that 1 hour, why don't we entertain the staff just to let loose? No grading, no none of this stuff. We're not worried about students right now. Let's just have an hour to laugh and play around. And so when the moment he gave me permission, I bolted from the principal's office and went straight to you.
yes,
Do you remember
okay,
this?
so absolutely, and so when you described what it was going to be, it was basically just like, hey, we have an hour to go do something, to produce something, to like show a comedy or make some things up and just kind of be silly in front of the entire staff. And I was like, I'm absolutely in. Like I was in 100% of the time, and I was coming up with ideas of what we could do right then. And I don't know, how do we get to the idea of a late night talk show? Because that's what
I
we
think
settled
that
on.
was early. That was real early. Let's
Yeah.
do it in a late night talk show format where we do just like a little monologue. We tell some stupid jokes about Raiders fans and how they're terrible people. And then
Yes,
and
there
then
was a lot of those. Yeah,
there was a lot of Raiders jokes. Just mainly because Miss James would scream at us. Like, oh no, you didn't, was probably the greatest moment of my life, right? And then and then play like a little skit. We do a game in with some staff members, and then like talk to staff members and highlight some of the cool stuff that they're doing. That was kind of the generic format, and then we built it from there. Do you remember the 3-letter acronym that we can like? In education, acronyms are everything. Like if you don't have an acronym in education, you're doing it wrong. And so
I think we have more acronyms than like the military does.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember the acronym that we came up with when we were working on that show?
So you said the three words.
Yeah.
And you just said it was like our very first meeting on what we can do, and you were just like, I kind of want just something that's like really high production value, just like
HPV.
really. And so it shortened it to HPV, and so in a way it was like you infected me with HPV, and because I was like I was really excited to do something that had really high production value,
Yeah.
and I was like, it made me take it seriously. And I was like, and then it hit me. It's like, oh, we're gonna be in front of over 100 people.
Yeah.
And so it made it more serious that like I wanted it to be the highest production value that I've ever made something into. And so
Yeah.
I put my heart into it. And then we started writing stand-up jokes for you.
Yeah.
And we did an investigation.
Dude, we
Um,
made video. You made videos that were just so, I mean, it was cool. Like that was a lot of fun. And I want to send me you I have to get links to those videos because I want to put them in here because people need to see like just the cool stuff that you were able to do. So how did you parlay that into a career in tech?
well, it was like a way to design something and present something and then
Mm.
show people. So one of my favorite things was just to show you what I've done. And so the way that I turned that into like a design job, which I'm in a tech career now, so I'm a designer. I just wanted to make something and show people what I've done, and then just kind of get the reaction and feedback. And I really like having the staff laugh at something or be silly and be like, "Oh, this is a great idea," and then I kind of felt like, after our show, we'd be like, like the quarterback won the Super Bowl or won state or something, and we'd be like high fiving people at the end. And I just thought that appreciation is something I haven't ever really received. I mean, from an entire staff is like, I don't think I've ever had that. And
Right.
so I just wanted to design something, and I looked around and found some design jobs, and that's
But
kind of how it changed my career.
my son there, Benjamin, has more, I would say, art creativity in his pinky than the rest of us do in our entire body because he can draw, he can paint, he can do. You've done sculpting sort of things at school, and now you're doing design with the UX, and so he's always been very creative. And the artsy guy is our family, and he didn't get it from me for sure, and his mom not so much. She does music, she plays piano, but beyond that, I don't know where he gets it. So, but yeah, we're just proud of everybody. It's funny because all three of our sons are different. They're all unique. They're all special. They're all great, but they all, of course, have their own qualities, and that's what's unique about everybody, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think I probably got it from you, Dad, because of the idea of keeping my mind open and just being like curious about the world and just like, hey, this is interesting to me. I'll learn about space. I'll learn about how to play guitar, and I'll learn about website design. I've tried to learn code, and it blows my mind. I can't figure out code yet, but I'm working on it. So I just try to
I think
learn new things all the time.
coding is an analytical art.
It's so tough for me to get code down. I can do simple stuff,
Right.
very very simple stuff, like internet from 1990 stuff. Like that's how good I am at code.
Dr. Dugan, I want to ask you, so my son is now involved in Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts. He's going into second grade, and he was involved in Cub Scouts. When Ben and I were talking, when we worked together, he had mentioned that he was an Eagle Scout. My question to you is, from a father's perspective, how did Boy Scouts affect or impact Ben as he was growing up?
yeah. Well, and his older brother's an Eagle Scout too. The middle one, not so much, but so we got two Eagles. So proud of them, and I mean, proud of our third son who, one camp out. Yeah, I'm done. I burned him up, but I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, I just think that, and his mother and I were leaders, and I was the Cub master for a few years. Had a lot of fun and with the Weebelows, and just had a riot basically with the younger kids. But I think what they had in the school that we had the kids in Wichita, they had just great leaders. And I would encourage you and anybody else, to they always say just an hour a week. Well, you spend an hour a week with your son or your daughter in Girl Scouts, and before you know it, it's an hour, 2 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours, you're on campouts. But it's an opportunity to just see things, do things, all the different activities they can do. Yeah, Scouts has a bad rap at time. There's bad people in Scouts, but there's thousands and thousands of good dudes and good guys and good Scouts and Eagles that they're great. They're good citizens, and but it just gives them opportunities. I mean, where else could I don't hunt or fish so much, but I mean, where else could you do black powder? What is it called? Then black powder shotgun,
powder rifle, yeah,
black powder, and archery, and and all kinds of things, pioneering, orienteering. I mean, there's all kinds of these merit badges that they learn, as they go through the ranks, and it's just an opportunity for young men to just like explore all these different options. I mean, space exploration. We went to the Cosmosphere in Hutchinson. Great place. As one of, I mean, there's probably about 150 different merit badges in scouting. So, I mean, just things to do, opportunities. Weekend campouts, and high adventure. He went to Philmont. I didn't go. I was beat up from our oldest son. We did Philmont, and we had about a 50-mile hike.
Oh, wow.
That's the typical, 50 milers plus the side hike. So that's a typical thing, but that's for scouts that are probably juniors and seniors in high school.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I have time before my kid forces me to go do that.
Yeah.
I need to get in shape for this then.
Get in shape, yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah, and Philmont's like the mecca of scouting. It's like the one place to go. So it's a new. If you haven't heard about it's in New Mexico. It's in the mountains, and the 50 miles is up and down the whole time. And when you get to the top of a mountain, it's exhilarating, and there's clouds up there, and you're like, well, this is where we started, and that was 3 days ago. We started down there by the buses dropping us off.
That's cool. That's awesome.
It's a sense of accomplishment. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dugan. Dr. Dugan.
Well, I just just physically exhausting. When I got back after with Matthew, I got back and I said, "Man, medical school is easy. This was hard." And so physically, it's exhausting. Medical school is not easy. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's physically exhausting. But it was, I have so many, tremendous, great memories of it all. So we did it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, my dad was an Eagle Scout, so I have a ton of respect for Scouts, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Eagle Scouts. And I remember when I asked Ben, and I asked Ben about his experience, I said, Ben, what was it? What did you learn about life or anything? Like, what big takeaway did you have from being an Eagle Scout and getting your Eagle Scout? And without hesitation, he's like, I didn't learn much. The only thing maybe one thing. And it's whenever, you open up like granola, don't tear it into two pieces, because then you have two pieces of trash. Just tear it into one piece of trash. And I thought, man, out of all the things that you went through to get your Eagle Scout, it was don't turn one piece of trash into two pieces of trash. And and what's really crazy though is that I have hung on to that. So even to this day, whenever I open something, a little package of something, like whether, fruit snacks for my boy or a granola bar, whatever it might be, I always like Ben Dugan says, you got to just have one piece of trash, we can't turn it into two, so I think that's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
That was what you learned from getting your Eagle Scout. Yep. That's the one thing. But the thing is, you'll never forget that, you'll be 30 years from now, I'd be like, man, I still open up plastic packages. Hopefully we're done with plastic by that point, but you still remember it. But yeah, there's other things I learned, but that I was like, I know you, Dave, and you're going to want the stuff that's silly and goofy and stuff that, I mean, it wasn't important that I learned that, but it was that was something I learned. And all the other stuff that comes with just your character. I mean, when we got to the top of that mountain at Philmont, we were close to that, and I dropped my pack and we just started running to the top because I was like, I just want to get there. and I probably passed some people to get up to the top, because it was a little competitive. In my mind, it was competitive. I think the other scoutmasters and stuff, they were like, just to stay on the trail. They were like, you go, you stay on the trail, and then we'll meet you up at the top. But no, it builds character. Just the whole idea of scouting and having it's like self accomplishments and that intrinsic value. I mean, if you get an Eagle Scout, yeah, it's possible you'll be, might get a better job later on. If some people, it matters to certain people about being an Eagle Scout for jobs. I don't know if I ever got a job because of that reason, but I still put it on my resume.
You walked into Camp Nash up here at Bonner in Bonner Springs, and they said, I'm an Eagle Scout, and they said, you're hired. What do you want to do? You're still in students teaching here at Baser. But I mean, it was just a summer job if you wanted it. And you worked there, I think you worked there for a little bit at Camp Nash. Just because you walked in and said, I'm an Eagle Scout, boom.
Yeah, it was part of the summer, yeah. And I think that was like the only thing I had on my resume. I was like, I'm an Eagle Scout. And they're like, that's good enough. That's good enough. So I worked there for, I don't know, 2 months, and then I realized I'm getting paid next to nothing. But it was still a good experience because I met some new people, and I don't know if I still talk to any of them anymore, but they were good people. I never stayed at the camp because I lived so close to Camp Nash, but yeah, it was fun because it was like as an adult I was getting back into scouting a little bit, and it was cool to see the young kids kind of interested into it. And even from that little stint of 2 months at Camp Nash, it was educational. I learned some things there too. I worked at the trading post, and how just kind of a lot of those interactions I'd have with just random campers, random scouts that come in and their families. It was like I got practice at just meeting a new person like every 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd have a simple, quick conversation. So it was like a social skill that I kind of practiced every 10, 15 minutes, that a new person would come in and say, hey, how's it going? How's your camp going? Where are you camped at? This is good. And all these different things. And so it was a social piece to that. So I enjoyed it.
Dr. Dugan graduated in 1974 from Osawatomie. I want to know from your perspective, that year they won the state championship, and clearly the crown jewel of that team was Derek Jensen.
Yeah.
I want to know from your perspective what made him I don't care about the football stuff, but what made Derek Jensen a special person?
Yeah. Yeah, and I since I wasn't on the team, we weren't super close, but you would see Derek around, and I'm sure I had some classes with him, but the guy was just down to earth. He's just down to earth, a regular guy. You could talk to him. Everybody knew he was a superstar. Everybody knew he was going to go far, or we assumed he was. But you wouldn't know it. He was not a big, huge man, but he's plenty big enough, and he's certainly strong and knew how to run over people. But he, I think he just was a good, kind-hearted guy who just was a freaking amazing football player, offense and defense. And so and that was, he was just humble about it all. So that was kind of Derek.
Yeah, because he doesn't have an opportunity to speak for himself, I try to ask as many people from that era about him, because there's, of course, everything he did and everything he gave back to the community. He's got there's something special about him that was more than just football that I'm trying to explore and trying to find out more about. Did you ever have a story where that like he did anything particular, or did you just remember him being a good guy and just and handling his business?
I think he just was always a good guy. There's nothing particular that he did out of the ordinary. He just was, if you needed something, he'd be there to help you out. Again, we didn't run in the same circles, but I just, there was no, back in those days, there was people didn't smoke, but we didn't know. We didn't, there weren't drugs, there weren't social media, it wasn't all those distractions. And so all we had was kind of each other back in 73, 74. People sneak out and smoke in the bathroom, sure. Guys get, alcohol, sure. But for the most part, I don't think a lot of us were into that. Unfortunately, I think it's a lot more pervasive now. But I mean, Osawatomie is just a small town, good people. Nothing. Kind of a bedroom community for Kansas City. A lot of people went to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And just good, solid foundation. I mean, they just you could rely on the people to be good and friendly to you.
Yeah,
So, and Derek,
I think that's what's wildly important about this town is that, there's always somebody there to help if you need it. Like I had somebody help me had to come help me, put in my garbage disposal because I don't know how to turn a wrench or cut down a tree. There's all sorts of times where I've had to lean on the community, and without fail, the community has been there for me. So I appreciate that. That's kind of what you took away from it as well. Now, one other thing I want to talk to you about, and then I have some questions for you guys that I ask everybody. But one more thing that I want to talk to you about because you lived it. Ike Brady mentioned to me that there was a moment that kind of changed things around here when I think there's Mike and Rick Stevens. Is that right? Am I saying it right?
Mike and
yeah, those boys got electrocuted out at the state hospital. Can you speak to that experience and possibly what you think happened with the town leading up, like before that and after that? What was the town? What shifted, I guess, in the town when that happened?
Well, yeah, and the Stevens boys were older than me. Mike was, what was the other brother's name? Mike and
I think it's Rick.
Rick, right. So I think I want to say Mike was maybe the older one. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm flip flop. He just got engaged to a young gal to be married, and they were, set to be married. I think later that year. And then the younger of the Stevens boys had just accepted a full ride to KU for football. I mean, he's a big bruiser too. But again, nice as can be. My mother was pretty good friends with their mother, Miss Norma Stevens, I think her name was. I think she worked at the state hospital, and so Mom knew her, Miss Stevens. And then their dad was, I think he was the head of groundskeeping there at the state mental hospital. Yeah, but yeah, super tragic. One summer they were just trimming trees, I guess, and on one of those cherry picker machines, trucks. One of them got a hold of a live wire with a chainsaw, supposedly, and they both went down. And it was just like they're gone. And I don't think they had any brothers or sisters, and so Mr. and Mrs. Stevens lost their entire family in the same minute. Yeah. And it's just unbelievably tragic. You can't imagine. I cannot imagine losing one, let alone two, of your sons or daughters, and it just ripped the hearts out of the people of Osawatomie. I remember going to the funeral. Hundreds and hundreds of people were there, beyond standing room only. It was just, I don't remember if they had a loudspeaker, but I mean, just to be there in that presence, to like support them in whatever we could do. I mean, they've lost both their sons, but the tears flowed, like river. Yeah. And I think it just made us all realize how important and how fragile this world really is, and how fragile life is. And, you're just, one step away from, ending it all. And so you gotta be real careful, and you can't just, drive 100 miles an hour and expect it's going to work out every time. Sometimes it's not going to work out for you. So but I think the community kind of pulled together, kind of, learned how to love each other again. And it was just, heartbreaking for all of us, but we all realized, man, this is some serious stuff, and we need to take care of one another. Yeah. So I know it affected. I listened to part of Ike's blog, and I think it really affected the football team too. Well, I know it did.
Yeah.
So
I just wonder about that moment, and I didn't have anything similar happen to me when I was growing up in my high school time. Nothing similar to that. that kind of grasps the whole town. And I think just kind of hearing those stories about how everybody turned out for the funeral just to show the support. The town rallied around each other. And I kind of get the sense that that's what happens in Osawatomie. The 51 flood, the 2007 flood, everybody rallies when it's time. This to comes together arm in arm to be there for each other and to help each other out. And that to me, I think is extremely special about this place. So I appreciate you sharing your experience there with us. All right, so I do this thing every week. Part of education, part of learning, is there's this moment in learning, in all the different learning models that you go through. There's a common thread, and that's synthesizing information. If there's a word there that I may have said a word, but
Not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm glad you got through your stroke there.
Please don't put that hell on me. Come
Sorry. I'm glad you're safe.
I'm in the presence of a real life doctor, but I still don't want to have a stroke. No, but part of the way to synthesize information is to reflect and go through a reflection process. And I do a reflection with my students, a weekly reflection log where I ask them to give me a rose, a thorn, and a seed. So starting with you, Ben Dugan, I want to ask what is your rose, thorn, and seed from your experiences visiting Osawatomie and having family here? What was the best thing that happened whenever you would visit in the summers? What is the worst thing that ever happened when you were visiting in the summers? And what's something that you took away from that experience of being in and around Osawatomie in the summers?
All right. So summers, I'll start with Rose, is summers were just awesome. I mean, as a kid, you love your summers. Time off. You get to go do some fun stuff. You get to go outside and get sunburn, all that stuff. But yeah, my cousins were they were kids, and it was just a blast to go hang out with them. So that was absolutely the Rose, just getting out there and visiting them and playing video games with them, going outside. We made well, when we visited one time, there was a miniature golf like putt course that they had made in their yard and dug little spots in their yard and like had little golf clubs and everything. So I mean, that was just silly that one time, but we had fun with it for like an hour and a half. Just outside, just hitting the ball around. And there was no, I mean, yeah, there was video games, but there was also just time to be outside. And so we made up a bunch of games. We made up a game called Leaf Catch. I don't know how to explain that, but basically you throw a football into a tree and you catch a leaf that falls out.
That's amazing.
Silly, unimportant things, but we got competitive at it, so we can just go throw a football into the tree.
Right.
We made up a bunch of games. We got into trouble. We, jumped in the creek I think there was a creek behind the house. But yeah, that was probably just having fun with my cousins. That was probably definitely the Rose.
Yeah.
Thorn, the worst thing, well, probably when my grandpa passed away. It took away a reason to go to Osawatomie. And so it was tough, right? And seeing him go through his illness, that was tough. We did get a chance to visit quite a bit when he was living at the assisted living home nearby in that town, but it was tough. I mean, I had he was so my grandpa on my mom's side had passed before the one on my dad's side, and so it was a different experience when Richard passed, because I got to see him in his illness and in the hospital and going through some treatments and going through just the process of passing, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was tough to see it because with my other grandpa who had passed not even a year, but maybe it was 2 years before. There was none of that. I didn't see that entry. And so it was like, I just got news about my mom's dad passing, but then when Richard passed, it was like I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And my brother Sean, when we went to visit him in the hospital, Sean had some tears in the hospital. Of course, Dad, you were there and as much as you could be, and taking care of him and just motivating and saying, you know, we love you and we're here for you. And that was tough. So that's definitely the thorn. And the seed, I think, was something my grandpa said before he passed. And he said, well, so we went up there. I didn't know what to say. I was just like, just there. I, you know, I was I don't even know what age was I, Dad, when Grandpa passed. I was I high school? Was I in college still?
You and Nicole were dating. In fact, Nicole, his wife, Ben's
Okay.
wife, helped Ben and maybe Sean and a couple of the Hennis boys go in to see Dad as he was dying on his deathbed.
Yeah.
So I give your wife a lot of credit because it was hard. It was hard for all of us. So you would have in college by then.
Yeah. Okay. So I was in college, right? And so the seed would have been, so like I said, we didn't know what to say to him. We just were like there looking and talking as much as we felt comfortable to talk to him.
Yeah.
And then he just said, just seeing you makes me happy.
Huh.
And that was it. And that's all he really had to say. And then I didn't feel pressure to carry on the conversation. I didn't feel like I was.
Did you have the
I
confidence?
didn't feel awkward at all. What's that?
Yeah, did he give you the confidence to just be you in that moment? Like,
no, that came way early. That was in seventh grade where I just didn't want to change who I was and I was just gonna be who I am.
oh, that's
But
good.
it was more of like, don't try. It kind of, in a way, it taught me how to like not have to perform or not have to entertain or not have to think of things. You know, just being around, just being present is enough sometimes. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was definitely
That's actually a really
the
powerful
seed.
that is a powerful thing to learn, is that you know, being present in the moment is that. So there's a guy who graduated here named Paul Long, and he does motivational speaking, and what his big message that he gave our students last year was be present in the moment, right? There, don't try and have frivolous conversations, have meaningful interactions and be present. So that's a really I like that. All right, so I have a rose, a thorn, and a seed for you, Dr. Dugan. What is the best, worst thing that happened and something that you've learned as a dad, being a father? So fatherhood up to this point, right? Because it never stops and it'll never end. But what's the best thing about fatherhood? What's the worst thing about fatherhood? And what is something that you have learned from being a dad?
I think the best part is just like Ben said, just being present. I mean, the fact that you know, we don't carry the baby. The woman carries the baby. They, you know, for all intents and purposes, we're just kind of a spectator. But when those babies arrive, then your entire world changes. And so that's the rose. Without question, the birth of your children, there's nothing, and I mean nothing, that replaces that feeling.
Yeah.
You know, you fall in love with your wife, you love your parents, you love your brother, sister, but when you become a dad or become a mother, I mean, it's just off the scale, exponential. I mean, mathematically speaking.
Yeah.
So and I suppose that's, you remember those highlights of your life. I mean, saying "I do" when your kids are being born. When they get married, when they graduate. Those are important things. The baptism. So yeah, those are just peaks, and those are things that make you so proud.
Yeah.
That's why you take pictures.
Right.
And my wife's working on pictures. Working on some pictures today of our grandkids in Wichita. So I suppose that's the rose that I would take about being a father. The thorn, oh my gosh, the frustration. I mean, just do what I say. Okay, just listen to me. I'm older than you. I've been there, done that. just freaking open your ears and listen. But you can't. I mean, you can't. I mean, I live one life, and it's hard enough being in this life, let alone living somebody else's life. And so you just set examples. You know, you try to live your life the way that you think is right and good and wholesome, and you set an example, and they do what they're going to do. I mean, you grow up and you make your own decisions. I mean, free will is a thing. So it's not, and that's not thorn. It's just that's life. I mean, that's not really thorn.
No, but I get it because my daughter to this day, like even earlier this day, I asked her to do something. She looked at me and she just goes, "No," and
No.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Right, exactly. So, what is your seed? What has being a dad taught you?
I think as much as you think you love somebody, you don't love anybody until you become a parent. I mean, I don't believe. I mean, and so the seed is just like this is a little me, that I'm holding in my arms, and so that gives you hope. It gives you hope for the future. It gives you hope for the present. It's like, look what my wife and I have created here, and it's a seed that's come to fruition, and you're holding this reality in your arms, and it's a thing of beauty. I mean, it's a thing, and the potential is there. The potential for anything is there.
Yeah.
But I was going to be an astronaut. Well, it didn't work out. Maybe Ben will be an astronaut. No, maybe one of Ben's kids will be an astronaut.
Yeah.
We have one granddaughter in Wichita who wants to go get this. Ariel, Ben has heard this. Ariel wants to go to Mars with Elon Musk and be his doctor.
Awesome.
And this weekend, we heard that she wanted to deliver babies on Mars. So who knows? I mean, maybe she can do it.
There's going to be a need for that.
There may be a need for that. So that's what grandkids and kids can do for you. So that's the seed that is always there and it's always growing.
Oh, that's cool. All right. I really appreciate it. I have one more thing I want to do with you guys, and then I'll let you say whatever you want to say. I'll give you some free space. So if there's anything you want to say, you can. But before we get to that, I have a lightning round style. It's not a game, but it's almost
I'm
like
gonna win it.
it's almost like a not like it's just lightning round. I want you to answer right off the top of your head. I only have a couple of these questions that I want to ask, and and I want to see what your I think it might be interesting to see what your take is. So, Ben, my first question is for you. What movie character or TV dad most resembles your father? What TV character dad?
The dad from Bluey. I would say the dad from Bluey.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing.
For sure. I think I've become that, more of him. Like, because of seeing Bluey, I act more like him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Dugan, what actor would play your son Ben in a movie?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Who's good looking and smart and who did Titanic? That guy.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
Leo would be a good Leonardo.
I like that.
DiCaprio.
Yeah.
I think you could do a good Benjamin.
There you go. All right, Ben, what superhero characteristic or what characteristic is your dad the least like? So what superhero trait is the anti of your father? So like obviously he doesn't have the ability to fly, but what trait is the least like your dad?
That's tough. The least like my dad.
Yeah.
Probably anything to deal with like technology. Like you know how like Iron Man is like really smart in using tech and like just really my dad has trouble with tech.
There you go.
So like I would say that would be the only thing. Thor is really really smart. So like he's a scientist, right? But
Yeah.
it's a different thing. So it's all technology stuff. That's kind of what I would say.
He's the anti. Yeah. You're the anti.
Although I got in this bug before you did, though, Mr. Tech, though, Mr. Know-it-all.
I have to help you sometimes, and that's okay.
All right, Dr. Dugan, what was the one thing Ben did to get in trouble when he was a kid?
Oh, this was an easy one. And we still talk about it. So you know what's coming, Ben, trampoline. So we had this deal in Wichita. We had trampoline.
Yeah.
And the boys were good about jumping and, you know, following the rules. We trusted them, you know, and what would happen is that when we would leave, you know, we said, okay, you guys, you know, we're going to be gone a couple hours, go out for dinner, whatever. And they were old enough to you know, junior high school kids to take care of themselves. I think we had cell phones back then. But anyway, if the reports from all three of them were the same, they'd all get paid. But if there was inconsistencies between one or the other, we knew somebody was lying. Okay,
Yeah.
so I figured this out. And so, okay, what's going on? And they wouldn't get paid. They wouldn't, you know, get paid to babysit themselves. So, but they always got paid. They always told the same story. So nobody lied. And they all got paid. So one time they decided to drag the trampoline closer to the deck or the porch, if you will.
Yeah.
And they started jumping off of the top rail. And of course, they'd been told not to do that. And how far do you think it was down to the trampoline, Ben? Probably 8 feet down.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
it was higher than us. Yeah,
10
like the
feet.
highest we could jump on the trampoline, our
Yeah.
heads would get to about the railing.
So it was
of the deck.
well, we weren't there, and so they were doing this. All three of them were doing it. I guess you were doing it. You had no fear. I don't know. Tell me the truth there.
No,
So
I didn't jump. I never did jump off the deck onto the trampoline.
That's the
I
truth.
never did.
Yeah. So when we get home, my wife knows that somebody's lying.
Yeah.
And so he was guilty by association. Whether he jumped or not, I don't know. But he was finally able to spill the beans. And you know, I don't know if it was really all his fault. His big brothers really drug him into trouble, and so. But you know, thank God nobody got hurt and nobody got broke a head or anything.
Of the three of them, which was easy? Who was the easiest one to crack? Would it have been Ben because he was the youngest?
To crack? I mean,
yeah, like
mine.
Yeah, like all three are in cahoots. You know, they did something they weren't supposed to. Who was gonna spill the beans first?
Oh, Benjamin. Yeah.
Yeah, it was me too. Like as the baby of the family, like when my parents came home, immediately I'd say, like, my brother did this. He had a party. Yeah. Oh yeah.
She could tell.
Yeah, and I would swear secrecy to my brother. Like I'd stare him straight in the eye and like, I promise I won't tell mom. Like, this is amazing. Thank you for letting me participate with you and your friends. This is incredible. I'm so excited. The door opens when my mom comes home and I tell her everything. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I want to give you an opportunity to say or share or ask or whatever. So I want to give you a free space. I do this with my kids where they can ask anything they want. I want to be an open book, and I enjoy doing that with these podcast things as well. So if you have anything you want to share, the free space, the floor is yours.
Dad, you can go first on this one.
Yeah. Well, a couple of thoughts. One of the coolest jobs I ever had was in Osawatomie. I learned how to become a projectionist at the drive-in theater.
Cool.
It was so darn cool. It was so darn cool. The neighbor 3 houses down owned the theater, owned the drive-in theaters, the one in Paola and the one at the Midway Drive-In. And the neighbor kid was there, and they asked me if I could do it, if I wanted to do it too. And so, sure enough, I went out there and learned how to become a projectionist. Coolest job in the world. I mean, it was really, you know, I saw a lot of movies. I couldn't hear it because it was so loud. But that's back when they had these old. They didn't have light bulbs then. They had these carbon arc deals where it's like a welding torch. And so these two arcs, we had to get closer together to make an arc to create the light. Super hot, reflected mirror shot the light out through the projector out to the screen. So yeah, that was the coolest job I think I ever had. You know, I think I think that you went about Osawatomie and growing up. I think just the foundation there, and just opportunity to see things and to do things and to learn things, just and to really put my nose to the grindstone. I wasn't into sport. I was proud when Coach Freeman recognized that I could actually start running when I was sophomore. And instead of getting C's or D's in gym, I got a B in gym because I could really run fastest.
Yeah.
That was important to me. But it's just the chance to go to college and to follow my my dreams, and just we had a work ethic, and yeah, it was just my parents worked hard, and I learned from him and learned from her, and I tried to pass on to my family. So
I love it. I
yeah,
absolutely love it. And I love that that there's a sense that Osawatomie rubbed off on you. Yes, of course you're raised by your parents, obviously. That there, and in no way am I taking any credit away from them.
no,
I do get a sense that this town and the people of this town and the stories that you were able to experience, the things that you were able to experience, definitely shaped you in a wonderful way, in a great way. It built character for you.
and my wife being from a small town in western Kansas too. There's something about small towns. I mean, nothing wrong with Kansas City and Wichita, Topeka, nothing wrong with New York,
Right.
but there's something about it. When I think Dave, you and I talked, like when the Vietnam was going on, I remember it, I watched it on TV, but it was, and the riots were going on, and all this hell was going on around the world. These little towns, we didn't have it. We didn't have it, and so we just did our thing, and so we didn't have to deal with riots and murders, and all that stuff. And so we were able to grow up sheltered. I know that. And so a different perspective. This is the opportunity that you're given, and you take advantage of it.
Right.
So,
Right.
and so and we try to do our best to shelter our sons, and Ben's an example too. I think he grew up in a big city, but they were well behaved for the most part.
All right, Ben, floor is yours, man.
I got just a couple things. Like, whenever I went to Osawatomie, it always seemed like an escape. Just because going to Wichita is, there's lots of traffic there and street lights, and there was always news going on, and there was, in our neighborhood in Wichita, we had a newscaster, that lived next to us. And so when you lived in Wichita, there was always stuff happening. There was always events and sports and everything. And then when you go to Osawatomie, it was kind of like slower, like just time seemed to go slower. And it didn't, to me, it seemed like an old town, and there's old pieces of it, but there's always like parts of it that was like that remind you of like this is still modern times. And it was just strange to me, but it was kind of like an escape, and it was just kind of a cool place. There was I remember going to John Brown Park with my cousins, and there was this old train, and I don't remember if it's still there or not, but this old train that was like there, and it was like I think it might have been the caboose, and it was like just in the park. And so there was groups of people that would just like, I don't know if it was other kids or whatever, but apparently there's a way to get inside this train, and I don't think you were supposed to. Yeah, it was just like this full-size train sitting in the middle of the park. And so people would get in there, they'd break out the floor or something, and there'd be all this graffiti on the inside and all these things. So I went in there just with my cousins and looked around, and then left. And to me, it just seemed like a place to just go explore, and just kind of like not necessarily get in trouble, just kind of like figure things out and go
Kind of like that Tom Sawyer
around and
Huckleberry Finn, like you get to go on an adventure, like have that like woodsy style adventure, but it's not. It's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I never felt in danger ever, really.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Well, I think part of what I'm doing here is trying to recapture that, because my kids are growing up here, and I would love nothing more than for my son to find a couple of friends and go explore you know, whatever woods or creek or something. And then, you know, that would be amazing, but I can't let them do that now. The way the town's getting better, but there's been a, you know, a little bit of a low time as far as safety goes. So that's where I want this town to be. I want it to be in a place where I feel good about my kid going in, exploring and having adventures, you know, like you're describing. All right, Dugans.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for giving me so much of your time. This is I really enjoy hearing your stories and about this town and our connections. And I think there's something really interesting about and I was talking to somebody earlier today about how you never know, you know, who you're one step away from, right? You know, there's so many unique and interesting people that I'm learning about and coming in contact with. And you know, who would have known that you know, I met RG3's high school coach, right? Like that's weird. That's something strange, like a Heisman Trophy winning football player, and I've met his high school football coach, right? Like, so they're just one person removed, right? Who knew that Ben, my buddy at work, also had all of these ties to Osawatomie? And I think that is incredibly cool, really, really fascinating. And I love that I get to explore that with you guys. So thank you so much for being a part of this experience.
You bet.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All
Go
right.
Trojans.
Bye, you guys. Have a great day.
All right.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.